If I committed a crime?
Yes. That's why you're stopped right now.
Okay. Well, write me a ticket, take me to jail.
Alright, here's the deal, man.
I mean, that's the bottom line. If I committed a crime, take me to jail, write me a ticket.
Have you been drinking tonight?
I don't answer questions.
Okay, man, we're going to check your eyes and do a field sobriety test. It's called an SFST,
I don't
standardized.
submit to any searches and seizures.
Okay.
Field sobriety.
Nobody's doing a search and seizure, alright?
I don't submit to anything.
Okay.
No, you're on a stop.
Am I being detained?
Yes, you
Am
are.
I free to go?
No, you're not.
What am I being detained for?
Okay, turn
What
around.
crime did I commit?
Turn around. Put your hands behind your back.
Put my hand. Yes, sir.
Right now you're being arrested for running a stop sign, all right?
Running a stop sign?
Yeah, you drove through a stop sign in exchange in Ellis.
I'm being arrested for running a stop sign?
Yes, you are.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Southern Draw Law. My name is James White, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, and former police officer. Today's video comes to us from Harvey Freebird's channel. And a few months back, he uploaded his own experience from a couple of years back depicting an epic DUI refusal that Harvey exacted upon police officers in Fort Worth, Texas. Now, I've edited out all but the portions relevant to our discussion, but please make sure to check the link in the description so you can head over to Harvey's channel, watch the video in its entirety, and give him the credit for sharing his experience. Let's take a look.
Now here we have Officer Martinez at my window. He has his body camera muted, so we're going to switch over to Officer Thompson's body camera on the passenger side. And if you listen closely, you can hear what's being said. Anyways, let's get to the video. You guys enjoy it, and I'll see y'all later.
Where's your insurance at? You have insurance? No, it's not. That's registration. I need your insurance. So where you coming from? Like that right now?
Running the stop sign.
Vehicle, I'm going to remove you from the vehicle. Which one is it going to be? You can make this as smooth as possible, or we can make this
Are you in
complicated.
fear for your life, sir?
No, I'm not in fear for my life. I need to conduct an
By
investigation.
Texas state law, the only reason I have to step out of my vehicle is if you're in fear for your life.
Okay, so that's not happening right now. What's happening is...
If it's under threat of violence and jail, I'll step out.
No, for conduction of investigation, okay?
If it's under threat of violence,
There's Supreme Court case law that says that we can remove you from the vehicle if you're traveling on the highway, alright? Go ahead and step out of the vehicle for us.
Okay, so I misspoke when I said it was a Texas state law that says you only have to step out if the officer is in fear for his life. It's actually the Supreme Court ruling, Pennsylvania versus Mimms, that states an officer is allowed to ask you to step out of your vehicle for officer safety so he can pat you down for weapons. Now, if they're asking you to step out for officer safety to pat you down for weapons, that means there is a fear in them that thinks you might have a weapon. So, officer safety reasons, if an officer is in fear, they can ask you to get out to pat you down for weapons. Not search you, only pat you down. And these officers admitted that they weren't in fear because I asked them and they said no. And then when they pulled me out of the car, they never patted me down.
One thing I want to do here is to make a gentle correction to Harvey's thinking about the officer's exit order. I want to be clear, though, I'm not picking on Harvey for the sake of it. For one, the officer didn't even know what the case law meant, so how can we expect anybody else to understand it? And two, Harvey Freebird has, at the time of this recording, 129,000 subscribers. I have 2,300. I'm not trying to tell him how to do content or how to think. What I get concerned about is that people get out here and they cling to their own understanding of the law and they make decisions about what to take a stand on based on it. And I would hate for someone to make a decision to refuse an order to get out of the car or get arrested or convicted or worse, simply because they didn't understand the case law application. So I want to make sure that anyone who watches my video has a pretty good understanding of what the holding in Mimms actually stands for. So you'll notice here that Harvey makes a comment about the holding in Pennsylvania versus Mimms and the officer misusing the justification for the exit order. And he states that the officer needs to fear for his safety or that a person must be armed and dangerous. That's not exactly the holding in Mimms. Now, to be fair to Harvey, there was a pat-down in Mimms and a pistol was recovered, but that isn't the issue that the court ruled on. Mimms basically stands for the proposition that if an officer has legally stopped someone for a traffic violation, the Fourth Amendment seizure actually happened as a result of the traffic violation. And asking the driver to step out of the car for officer safety reasons once they're already legally seized is a very minimal additional intrusion and not unconstitutional. Also, an officer safety concern does not necessarily mean that the officer has to be presently in fear when they ask a person to get out of the car. So you'll actually hear Harvey ask the officer if he's in fear, and the officer says no. And the officer actually says that he wants Harvey to step out for further investigation, which is also incorrect, but we're going to discuss that in detail a little bit later. In order to stay in line with the holding in Mimms, the officer has to be constitutionally aware enough to articulate, at least by the time the case is filed with the court, that there was something about the situation that made officer safety a concern. And it could be as simple as not wanting to stand with your back to traffic while you're conducting the traffic stop and believing that it might be safer to ask the person to go stand on the sidewalk or somewhere else in order to get out of the middle of the road. Now, the courts have likened traffic stops based on reasonable articulable suspicion of a traffic infraction to a regular Terry stop or investigative detention. But Terry has two parts to it. Both of them sort of come into play in Mimms. The first part of a Terry stop is just the standard investigative detention. And then the second part of a Terry stop is a frisk of the outer clothing for weapons. A regular investigatory detention is called a Terry stop, and a pat down of the outer clothing is called a Terry frisk. So the case first has to be evaluated as to whether or not reasonable articulable suspicion existed for the original investigative detention. And then once that's established, then we have to go through the facts and see whether or not the officer had additional reasonable suspicion that the person was armed and dangerous. And if that's the case, then they might have a permissible Terry frisk where they could pat down the outer clothing for weapons. And just so you know, the courts have basically held that anytime an officer has suspicion that a person is armed, that person is considered dangerous, at least to the officer during that encounter. Now, what happened in the Mimms case was that Harry Mimms was stopped for an expired plate. The officer testified that he asked every driver that he ever stopped out of the car as a matter of course, and the state made the argument during the appellate level of the briefing that him doing that afforded the officers a degree of protection and made it safer for them to conduct traffic stops. And in the opinion, the court went through a couple of case studies that got examined about how dangerous it was for officers on traffic stops. So when Mimms got out of the car, the officer noticed a bulge in his jacket that the officer thought was a weapon. And he patted him down and found the gun, and Mimms was charged and convicted of unlawful possession of a weapon. But again, the weapon pat-down happened because of the suspicion developed after he stepped out of the car. So the court held that asking the driver out for officer safety was an additional minimal intrusion and not an additional violation of the Fourth Amendment. Once the officer in Mimms observed that Mimms had a bulge in his clothing, then the frisk became lawful under the Terry standard for a Terry frisk. For the record, I think the court got Mimms wrong. And my thinking was more in line with the dissenters in that case, because the dissenting opinion predicted correctly that Mimms would become a carte blanche justification for any officer that wanted to get a driver out of a car to do it, so long as the officer was constitutionally aware enough to blame it on officer safety. And that's exactly what has happened. But this is what we have, and there's not much we can do about it except to understand it the best way we can and play within the framework provided by the court. But as you can see, this case wasn't about officer safety. This was a poorly executed DUI investigation, and Harvey lays the smackdown on these guys and walks away in the end. Let's watch some more.
Yes, sir. I'm
Step
not
down the
resisting.
vehicle and
I'm not
step to
being
the
aggressive.
Come back this way.
Just step to the back. Just be compliant like
Yes,
you
sir. I don't have any weapons on me. I'm not being aggressive.
Okay.
Okay, do you want to tell us where you're coming from tonight?
No, sir. I don't answer questions.
All right, so here's our biggest concern, all right?
Yes, sir.
Based on what this officer saw, the way that you were driving and completely blew through an intersection without even so much as trying to slow down
I got
for
a
it.
dash camera.
That's fine. So do I.
So do we. All right. not really a relevant matter right here. Okay. The way that you blew at the intersection leads us to wonder if possibly you might be a little bit intoxicated, or you might have something in your system that's preventing you from being able to drive safely. People walk through that intersection all night long expecting cars to come to a complete stop.
Have I committed a crime?
Yes. That's why you're stopped right now.
Okay. Well, write me a ticket, take me to jail.
Alright, here's the deal, man.
I mean, that's the bottom line. If I committed a crime, take me to jail, write me a ticket.
Have you been drinking tonight?
I don't answer questions.
Alright. So,
you have your dash cams on?
Yeah, I got this cam on.
Do me a favor, kill your lights, your spotlight on the ground for me. Okay, man, we're going to check your eyes and do a field sobriety test. It's called an SFST,
I don't
standardized.
submit to any searches or seizures.
Okay.
Field sobriety
Nobody's
test.
doing a search or seizure, alright?
I don't submit to anything.
Okay.
You unlawfully pulled me out of my vehicle.
Okay, so by state law, okay, if we believe that you...
Have I committed a crime?
Yes.
You already unlawfully pulled me from my vehicle. I don't submit to anything. So
Okay.
take me to jail right now. I don't submit to anything.
Right now, get your hands out of your pockets.
Take me to jail.
Right now, for the sake of public safety,
Public
we
safety,
want to make
my ass.
sure
If I committed a crime.
we want to make sure that you're safe
Have
to
I
drive.
committed a crime?
Yes.
What crime did I commit?
You ran through a stop sign.
I did not run through a stop sign, sir.
And that's what leads us to believe you
I
might
did
be
not run through a
intoxicated.
stop sign. I did not run through any stop sign. I have a dash cam. I know what I did.
Alright, so we're going to conduct
I'm not
standardized
I
field sobriety
refuse.
test.
I refuse field sobriety
You
test.
refuse
I
to do a
refuse
field sobriety
any searches
test.
and seizures. I refuse field sobriety test. I have not broken any laws. Am I free to go?
No,
am I being
No, you're
detained?
not. Yes, you are.
For what crime? For what crime am I
Further
being detained? Investigation for what crime?
Stay
What
right
is
here.
your reasonable articulate suspicion of a crime, sir?
Just wait right here.
No, what is your...
Wait right here.
Am I free to go?
No, you're not free
Okay.
to go. You've asked me. Don't ask me again. You're not free to
Okay,
go.
I'm not answering any questions.
Keep an eye on for a second for us.
Okay, I'm not answering any questions.
Keep an eye on for a second for us.
Can I have a supervisor, please?
No, you may not.
No, I want a supervisor.
Okay, I'll get you one then.
Thank you. Am I free to go?
No, sir.
What is my...
Hey, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I just pull up
Honest-
here and I'm just listen to me. All right.
I asked him for a supervisor and he
He-
said
he's-
no.
He's gonna get you one. All right, listen.
No, he said no.
He's gonna get you one. Stop. All right. I just pull up. I'm just helping them out.
I haven't committed any
I
crime.
have no idea why you were pulled over. I'm just helping them out.
You guys are violating my rights.
Well, no, we're not.
Yes, you are.
No, we're not.
You have your
100%
body
my
camera
body
on?
camera is on. Yes, 100%.
Turn. How come I don't see the light blinking?
Are you blind?
Turn. Okay, I see it now. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. What's your name and your badge number?
Segura 4325.
4325.
Yes, sir.
I was just looking. I have a bad zipper. It always goes down, and I have to pull it back up. I don't have any weapons on me. I haven't broken any crime. I haven't done anything wrong. I did not run a stop sign. Am I free to go?
No.
Being detained?
Yes.
Supervisor's on his way.
What crime am I being detained for?
Right now, you're just being held.
Held
You're
for-
on a, huh?
Why'd you stutter? What crime?
No, you're on a stop
Am I
sign.
being detained?
Yes, you
Am I
are.
free to go?
No, you're not.
What am I being detained for?
Okay, turn
What
around.
crime did I commit?
Turn around. Put your hands behind your back.
Put my hand. Yes, sir.
Well, now you're being arrested for running a stop sign, all right?
Stop sign?
Yeah, you drove through a stop sign in exchange in Ellis.
I'm being arrested for running a stop sign.
Yes, you are. Are you clear and understanding of that?
Yes, sir.
So you're not going to ask me again, right?
No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, I do actually think that because this officer misunderstood the case law he was quoting himself, he actually did commit a violation of the Fourth Amendment, but not under Mimms. I think he actually violated the court's holdings in the Rodriguez case of 2015. Remember in Rodriguez that the Supreme Court held that an officer's investigation has to be narrowly tailored to the mission of the traffic stop itself. In that case, Rodriguez was stopped for a traffic violation. The officer wrote a warning ticket for the traffic violation and handed it to him. But then he told him he wasn't free to leave, and he detained him long enough for a canine to come and sniff the car. Rodriguez was arrested for a drug violation because of the canine sniff. And the court said that that officer had no reasonable articulable suspicion of anything other than the original traffic violation. So the holding in Rodriguez said that basically detaining someone after the original violation has been cured for the purposes of a dog sniff was an effort aimed at general criminal wrongdoing and investigating that, and it required separate reasonable articulable suspicion. And where the officer did not develop that during the traffic stop or his investigation for the reason for the traffic stop, this violated the Fourth Amendment. So remember, in the case that we're looking at here, the officer said to Harvey that he wanted him to get out of the car to do an investigation. What we later learned was a DUI investigation. They wanted to check his eyes, and they tried to manipulate him into complying with the field sobriety test, and of course he refused. But all they had as an original reason for a stop was a stop sign violation. And so the officers were saying things like, well, we're thinking that maybe because you ran that stop sign, you might be intoxicated and stuff to that effect, which again is evidence that all they had was just a mere hunch that the reason for running the stop sign might be because he was intoxicated. That is not enough for reasonable articulable suspicion of a DUI investigation. The holding in Rodriguez says the officer's job was to investigate the stop sign violation. Now, it would be different if in the course of talking to Harvey, he was slurring his speech, or the officer could say that he smelled alcohol, etc. But remember that Harvey was chewing breath mints, and the officer didn't have any way to smell anything on his breath. And the officer kind of was quick to jump the gun to get him out of the car and go ahead and conduct his DUI investigation before he undertook some of the interviewing techniques that might have justified, under the totality of the circumstances, his transition into a general DUI investigation. So, since he didn't develop any reasonable articulable suspicion that justified him pursuing a DUI investigation, it's my opinion that he abandoned the original mission for the stop in order to conduct a new investigation for general criminal wrongdoing, absent a new reasonable articulable suspicion of DUI, and thus violated the Fourth Amendment. This is likely the reason we see Harvey get arrested for a stop sign violation, but the officer somehow had no legal avenue to demand a blood or breath test after he refused the field sobriety test. It's pretty obvious to me that had Harvey not been smart enough to refuse these tests, the officers would have very likely ended up with arguable probable cause to make a DUI arrest, or at least to be able to articulate it. So Harvey did an excellent job of protecting his evidence and not incriminating himself in this case. Remember, you never have to submit to field sobriety tests. They are voluntary. And so as long as you know that, and as long as you know what to do, and you're not standing there swaying back and forth because you're 3 sheets to the wind, as long as you just stand your ground, ask for justification, and do the things just exactly as he did, your chances of not getting arrested for anything that sticks are much higher. Now, you're probably going to get arrested just like he got arrested. I mean, we saw that he basically got punished for invoking his rights, but again, all they could pin on him was a stop sign violation, so at the end of it, he walked away. My closing argument is that in the end, Harvey got what matters the most exactly right. Maybe he didn't know how Mimms operated, and maybe he wasn't even aware of Rodriguez, but what he did know was not to allow the social pressure of being cooperative to the police to cause him to incriminate himself by participating in tests that he doesn't have to participate in, thus giving up his liberty. Maybe that's why he calls himself Harvey Freebird. But he definitely won this interaction with the cops, and he did it exactly the way he should have. That's all for this case, friends. I've left links in the description to the opinions for the cases I mentioned in my commentary. It would do all of you good to try and read them in their entirety and have a good understanding of how they work. Please remember to like and subscribe, and leave me a comment about what you think of Harvey's refusal. Also, check out the other videos on my channel and let me know what you think of them. Until next time, take care of yourself, always film your interactions with the police, and keep your evidence to yourself.